Welcome. Welcome. Bloody welcome.
Is it going to be a pouting day? Sunday chat!
That's right. I was waiting for you, Paul.
I know you were.
That's right. So welcome. It's a little bit cool this morning, isn't it, Paul?
It is, yeah.
We're well and truly on the road to winter.
It's funny, I was at Vanessa on Tuesday, and for the first time this year I came out of a building and it was quite dark and it felt like sort of, deep autumn. It sort of felt like it, and it smelt like it, and it sounded like it. So,
it's not in order, Paul. Disturbs me when we go off track.
Yes, because we've got to stick to the extensive script.
The extensive script.
Yeah.
And also, I just wanted to say before we go on, one of our viewers mentioned about swearing and said that they had learned from another YouTuber that apparently they'd been demonetized for saying the word bloody. I don't think that's right. You're not going to get demonetized for using the word bloody. The ones you do have to worry about really are the f***s and the c***s. Really. But when you upload a video to YouTube, you declare whether there is any swearing of a certain type, whether there are any references to other unsavoury subjects, and then you upload and you submit your rating yourself. And as long as you are truthful, everything should be okay.
Yeah.
So there we go. Just thought I'd mention that. So welcome to any newer subscribers that may have recently joined us here on the cult channel that is Richard and Paul. And remember, if you want it all, watch Richard and Paul. I think it's such a good strapline that I came up with.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I'm full of good ideas.
Yeah, you're full of it. Yeah.
I am
absolutely.
completely and utterly full of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we usually kick off with Rich and Paul's weather report. So, as Paul mentioned earlier, we're in deep autumn now. We're in deep something, I can tell you that right now, because we are in the UK living under the grey blanket.
Yeah, and have been for quite a few days. There was on Thursday. I think you missed it, but there was 5 minutes of bright sunshine. No. Literally, just 5 minutes. And as soon as I realised there was bright sunshine, a moment later it was gone. Yeah, and you missed that, didn't you?
Yeah, but I saw the glimpse of sunshine, I think it was Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday, because I included it in my vlog. I was at work and there was a beam of sunshine coming down and I filmed it. It was momentary, fleeting, and went. So yeah, it's kind of, apparently it's something anticyclonic or something it's called, and it's keeping this area of high pressure over the UK, which means the weather conditions are settled and quiet.
So in the north, in Scotland, they've had warm, sunny weather this week. And that's sort of quite bizarre. Again, it's different to how it normally is.
Well, if you are in Scotland and you're experiencing warm, sunny weather, do let us know. It's kind of quite depressing, and this can happen in summer as well. We've had a number of summers where the grey blanket has just been hovering over the UK, and it kind of starts to get you down because everything's dark and dreary and just,
And the jet stream is above us at the moment, isn't it? I think, and that's sort of helping keep everything.
You mean in the north?
Sort of, yeah.
It's in the north.
It's
of
in the
to
north, north of the UK,
which of course allows the warmer
air to come up.
Yeah. Although it's not feeling that warm, it's gradually getting cooler now.
It is.
Obviously.
It is. And if you watch my week at the plot, I've talked about how when it gets to like 4:30, getting to sunset, once the sun has gone behind the tree line at the allotments, at the bottom of the allotments, that temperature really does sort of drop a couple of degrees.
And you just can't go on.
Well, you can actually. You just put your shirt or your jumper
Well,
back
I don't think
on.
you can go on at that time. It's almost dark at that time.
Well,
now.
yeah, but if you watch a week at the plot next week, i.e. when it comes up tomorrow, that first segment when I'm doing the to-camera bit, that's almost in blackness.
Is it really, Paul?
It virtually is. It's because my camera doesn't work very well in low light, and therefore it's a bit fuzzy.
Oh.
So, yeah. But I'm waffling on, so there we are. Yeah.
So, what's in the show this week? Coming up on Richard and Paul today. Television.
Things
We've done or not done. Books we've read or not read.
Yeah.
All in a jam-packed show full of quality viewing.
What does jam-packed mean?
Jam-packed.
Jammed in.
It's jammed in.
It doesn't mean full of fruit.
No, it means jammed in.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
when
what
you're
it
trying to
means.
get into that t-shirt that no longer fits you. That's jammed
Michelin
in.
Man.
When I'm trying to get into those fiery silk silver trousers.
You still got those?
Yes, of course. One day, I'll fit into a 32 again.
Oh, dearie me.
Yeah, I'm not going to give them away. They're silk. And they're silver.
Well, apparently, if you've got sort of tight-fitting shirt, it's sort of, t-shirt and things, it keeps the air in, so it's good for the winter.
Well, no,
that's
you need
my
to
view.
allow air in.
Oh, do you?
Oh,
It's the opposite then. Yeah.
Anywho, yes, so weather, tick, welcome, tick. So, yesterday we went out and about into London to Greenwich. That's spelled Greenwich.
Greenwich, yeah.
Greenwich.
That does confuse people still,
Or
doesn't
Greenwich, as some people
it?
call it.
Yeah, IDGE.
I do find that odd when people say sandwich
Yeah.
and Greenwich.
Well, a lot of what people say astounds me
I'm not
these
saying
days.
it's wrong or bad or incorrect. We might be the ones in the wrong. But
Sandwich, SANDWICH.
Yeah, but have you heard the other one? Sandwich.
Oh, yeah, sandwich. Yeah,
Sandwich.
I mean, yeah.
Why? Tell us.
Sanguid is a word, so
Sang-
maybe they got that
Is it?
confused with
I don't know.
sandwich and sandwich.
It's very odd how people pronounce things, but it's all lovely and welcome here.
Well, yeah, mostly.
That
yeah.
was the 1 o'clock bong.
I mean,
It's lunchtime now, Paul.
Oh,
Stop.
Bye.
Bye.
Some of what people do say sometimes. I
Anyway,
mean, what I say it can be rubbish.
Now,
I
Paul,
do
you're
know.
out of control.
But what some people say.
This is not the Paul show.
No, it's not. No, it's the Richard show.
It's the Richard and Paul Sunday Chat show. Paul.
Sunday chat.
Just stop hogging it. God, honestly. So yes, we went out for a trip to Greenwich, and if you'd like to see photos of our trip, you can follow us on Facebook, Richard and Paul, or indeed our Facebook group, Planet Vegetaria. That's a Facebook group by Richard and Paul. Richard and Paul since 2017. That's contractual. Also on Planet Vegetaria this week, my new cookie recipe. We've been enjoying my cookies this week, haven't we, Paul?
Yeah, we've been eating them.
Yeah, enjoying them.
Yeah.
Chocolatey, oaty, chewy, sugary, treacly. Ideal for this time of year.
Yeah, they were a bit like a
Treacle toffee.
a cookie version of
A biscuit.
no, the bonfire thing.
Parkin.
Parkin. Yeah, they were like a biscuit version of parking.
Maybe I need to rebrand them.
Parking biscuits.
I've included the full
Fucking
recipe
cookies.
on Planet Vegetaria. That's a Facebook group I ours. Yeah. So, lovely.
Are you going to do them again? Are you going to change them
Shush
at all?
now,
Are you
Paul.
going to,
Back to the
are you
Greenwich
going
trip.
to- Greenwich!
So we went to Greenwich, and Greenwich, for those of you who don't know, is the home of the Greenwich Meridian, which is the longitude line of 0 degrees.
It's not actually a line.
Well, it is a line, an imaginary line.
Yeah.
So we saw that, which was good. We went to the observatory.
But what I didn't know is the meridian has actually moved several metres over a couple of centuries, where it's been sort of refined. It is where it is now, I think. I don't think it's going to move again.
It is, as we've said, it's an imaginary line, which of course was created for navigation purposes and also for the time zones around the world.
Yeah.
So it all starts at GMT, which is 0, and it's based in Greenwich. There are also other areas of London that have the meridian marked.
Oh, are there? I didn't know that.
Yeah, there are.
America also
There's a
has
hotel.
hodgepodge time zones.
I think it's called the Meridian.
Oh, is the meridian on the meridian?
I think so.
That would make sense. I do love the Meridian.
There
It's
we
a
are.
lovely, it's
Anyway,
a really lovely hotel.
So we also went
It's
to
got a fantastic central area. You can look up to the stars. Oh, maybe.
That's it. Stay like that. It's quite attractive. We also went to the Cutty Sark, which is the ship, which is in permanent dry dock, that you can sort of walk about. And it was really good actually, because we went to the observatory first and we got chatting with one of the staff, and we were saying how interesting the area was and there's so many things to see, but it can turn out to be quite an expensive day. And she said, well, if you take your ticket for the observatory down to the Cutty Sark, you can get in half price.
Yay.
So we said, oh, well, that's where we're going now.
Yeah, so we did. Yeah.
So the Cutty Sark, very interesting. I'm not really into ships. I find them a bit woo. I've always been a bit woo about ships. But actually...
Well, particularly hulls.
Yeah.
He doesn't like hulls.
In generally metal in water.
Yeah.
Deep water, metal hulls. No, don't like it.
And
Makes me shiver.
the Cutty Sark did have a metal hull.
Yeah.
It was a special metal. Was it Magno or something?
Oh, I can't remember what they call it. I did
But
read it.
it's when they had to do the refurbishment following a fire, they reclad it with a copper and zinc mix, didn't they? Alloy, yeah. It's very impressive, and it helped it go faster through the sea, because it would. I think it was from Australia to the UK when it was carrying wool after it had done all its tea trading days and was carrying wool from Australia. It would take 73 days, which is sort of quite amazing, really. But I was also surprised that the bow of the ship is, you know, where the sort of front ends meet. That was flat at the front, and I thought it would have been better if it had been sort of pointy, because then it would have cut through the waves.
I don't
quicker.
know, but what I found a bit odd is when we went for a coffee, there was nobody serving at the cafe.
No, there wasn't. There had been. I think again it was a bit like when we went to Osterley House and Park. The person was working in the back of the kitchen, and there were people to be served in the front. And again, it brought up this question of having enough people to actually cover the cost of things. Because, you know, we'd have most probably had a coffee each, a cake each. That would have been at least a tenner. Well, yeah, I would have thought it was 5.50, 11. It would have been about 18 quid, I reckon. And then there was two other people who were waiting behind us as well. One was a staff member. So that, even in that purchase, it would have covered somebody's hour of work on what I assume is a minimum wage job or a London wage job at least. So
Where did you get the £5.50 from? Were
The
you basing
cakes-
that on the...
no, the cakes were £5.50 each.
Well, the wraps that we had at the observatory were £5.50.
Yeah, but the cakes were £5.50.
£5.50 for a piece of cake.
Yeah, yeah,
And also the thing we didn't like were the cakes were out.
yeah,
I don't
You
like
could-
it
you
when
could-
cake... I like cakes to be kind of under a covered
yeah,
area.
yeah.
Really? So that wasn't so great, but the experience itself of visiting the Cotty Sark, which is placed in an area right on the Thames.
Yeah,
In fact, the whole area that we visited, Greenwich, looks over to the Isle of Dogs, which is kind of where the city buildings, the skyscrapers are now.
Canary Wharf.
Canary Wharf and the Isle of Dogs.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Docklands.
that's the curly bit on the Thames. If you watch EastEnders, the big sort of loop in the river, that's kind of that area.
Do you remember when the Dome opened in East? When the Dome opened,
The Millennium, Dome, which is
Dome,
now the O2.
it suddenly appeared on the EastEnders map. Do you remember that? And there was a big thing about
I
it.
don't think I've ever
Yeah.
watched EastEnders.
Well, I know the start
since the
of it.
80s anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we had a really good day out. It wasn't going to be a full day out, but it ended up being pretty full. And we wanted to get back home
Before rush hour. Yeah.
However, that didn't really make much difference because the trains were pretty full.
Yeah, on the way back.
On
yeah.
the way back.
So we got the Elizabeth line from our local station through to Canary Wharf. We got the Docklands Light Railway down to Cutty Sark. And at the Cutty Sark, the escalators weren't working. So you had the option of the lift or the stairs. We decided to take the stairs, which we did quite well.
we
really.
did it, and actually we did quite a lot of climbing upstairs, which
We
my
did a lot.
knees started to tell me about at one point.
Well, on the Cutty Sark,
The
because
steep.
you know you on ships and boats you have those steep stairs, and going down into the captain's cabin from the top deck, it was particularly low. So not only did you have that very sharp sort of those steps which were very sharp, but also the head height you had to bend right down.
Well, the
didn't you?
tween deck, as it's called,
Oh yeah.
that was very low ceilinged and a bit uncomfortable.
He couldn't stand up.
No, and in places that I can't stand up, I do start to feel ever so slightly claustrophobic.
Yeah.
So I didn't really enjoy the tween deck. All
But-
very well lit.
But it was very well lit. What was the amazing thing about that deck is you realise how big the ship was.
yeah.
Because it's just a huge expanse. Yeah, it was quite extraordinary. I haven't been to the Cutty Sark since I was 11. And I don't really remember it. I think I had the hump that day by the time we got down to the Cutty Sark. So, which I know my mum remembered for decades to come. And there's a photo of me in a album with me looking particularly glum at Greenwich. Yeah, I think I was with mum and dad, so somebody else must have taken the photo for us. So I mean, I was with mum and dad, but in the photo I'm with mum and dad. So dad must have asked somebody to take a photo.
Well, it was my first time, unless, of course, I visited in a previous life
As a Tudor baby
as a Tudor baby.
in Queen Anne's house.
So, the other place we went to was the Queen's House, and this is in the grounds of the Maritime Museum. We didn't go to the Maritime Museum. We're going to leave that for the next trip that we go to, because the whole point in going, for me, was to get the views.
Yeah.
But with the grey blanket and the mist, the views were kind of semi-obscured. But the Queen's House was fascinating. It's basically an art exhibition. You've got room after room after room filled with paintings. And the painting that I was most interested to see was the Armada portrait of Queen Elizabeth I. And Paul just happened to secretly pick me up a copy of this book. And it's an incredible portrait, and you can go right up to it. It's painted on wooden panels.
Which are curved.
Yeah, which are curved. And I remember seeing, I'm sure it's in this book, but I remember seeing about the restoration of it on a programme, and about those curved boards that it's painted onto. But it's an incredible portrait. Also...
but there are 3 of them.
Yes, there are.
There are 3 of them.
But not all in the same location.
And who are they painted by?
2 are unknown.
Yeah. This one's unknown.
Yeah.
And one of the others is unknown. It's very, very interesting.
But the other highlight for me is the tulip staircase.
Yeah.
Which is...
There was also a Lowry there of Deptford Power Station. As I walked into the room and saw all these paintings in this room, I looked at this one and I went, that's a Lowry. And it's interesting. I've never seen a Lowry in real life before. I mean, obviously I've seen, copies of them. So yeah, that was lovely.
And the tulip staircase is featured in the folklore, myths and legends of Great Britain. And I remember the photograph as a child. You can Google it, tulip staircase, the Queen's house, ghost. The photo was taken in the 60s and there was nobody else in the area. And the photo reveals what could be 2 ghostly figures. And that picture fascinated me as a child, so I really, really wanted to visit and see that for myself. And again, if you want to see more on our trip to Greenwich, have a look at my vlogs. There's some little bits of footage on there as well.
What's the interesting thing about the tulip? Well, one of the interesting things about the tulip staircase?
Well, one of the interesting things is it's named after the ironwork on the staircase, which actually turns out it's probably not a tulip at all. It's a lily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So
something that is really, really well known for...
Well, it said it's probably a lily.
Yeah, probably a lily, but definitely not a tulip. Yeah.
So that was all good. We enjoyed that, didn't we?
I really enjoyed it, and we went up to the Royal Observatory as well. There were lots of school groups around, weren't there? So generally, I mean, you sort of expect that during term time, but it was really nice.
I think 2 of the parties were quite posh schools, as far as I can tell. That one that I managed to get in ahead of them, and then you had to wait for all of them to come out. I think that was a common school.
That was
a
standard school.
Comprehensive, or whatever they're called these days, a high school.
And we saw the ball drop, because there's a giant red ball that gets raised up. I thought it dropped at noon, but it drops at 1 o'clock.
Well, I did say that too.
I know. Well, no, you told me it dropped at a different time. You didn't tell me what time. Anyway, it was 1 o'clock, and they gave the announcement that it was about to happen like 5 minutes before it was. So virtually everyone got into the courtyard of the Royal Observatory to watch the ball go up and then drop. Not particularly spectacular, but the whole reason for it is that the boatmen, the rivermen, or watermen as they're called, from miles around since the observatory was there and this ball was there, would be able to set their watches by the drop of the ball, because as you'd be able to see it, you can see it for miles and miles around, particularly in those days when you didn't have particularly high buildings, so you could see right across London.
And again, if you want to see my ball drop, look at my vlogs.
And the camera obscura, I was looking forward to that.
It wasn't working.
But because it was really misty,
Yeah.
I didn't get that. But because it was really misty, it wasn't working.
It was closed due to visibility issues. So, yeah.
And it's quite a hike up from Queen's House to the observatory. Again, we were both fine with that. I think we said on the way back, we think we're maybe a bit fitter than we actually... No.
Yeah.
We are fitter than we think we are, because neither of us were, completely puffed out, and there were others who were.
But don't forget, we do live in a house with 2 flights of stairs, and
Yes,
we do
that's
those
true.
flights of stairs several times a day.
Yeah.
And we don't do it slowly. I mean, I tend to run up the stairs quite a bit.
Yes. Yes.
So, but it is a very hilly area there of London going up, because it essentially... Those hills are the side of a valley.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
It's the side of the Thames Valley, essentially.
Yeah. The Thames Valley goes right along, really, from London through to where there's these sort of Thames Valley Police, is sort of like Reading and Newbury areas, and so it goes quite a long way.
Yeah. So there you go. That was our trip to Greenwich.
Yeah.
Or Greenwich, as some people call it.
But for us, door to door, it was pretty quick. I think about an hour and a quarter.
Yeah, I mean, the Elizabeth line's pretty good.
Yeah.
And it goes straight through central London, and it seems to have busy moments where people are clearly using it as a local transport system in central London. But yeah, it was great. It was good. Good day out.
I mean, to get to Canary Wharf from door to door is now about, 45 minutes?
Something like that.
And it used to be like an hour and a half, an hour and 3/4, the way that you had to go. So yeah, for us it's much quicker.
Yeah. Anywho, it was, as you can imagine, a day out in London. Turned out to be quite pricey.
Yeah, I mean, we expected it to be.
We factored it in because we've been sort of thinking about a trip out to Greenwich for a while, and knew that if we were going to see a couple of the attractions, not everything is free. There are a significant number of things that are free. I mean, if you don't go into the Cutty Sark, you can admire the top of the ship from the Thames. You can go to the National Maritime Museum for free. In fact, are all the museums still free in London?
I think public museums are free. So there are private museums that obviously aren't.
But we used to pay for the Science Museum and the
don't
Natural
now.
History Museum, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because we had passes.
Yeah, they went through a period where they put prices. Well, the government put prices on museum entrances, and then that was withdrawn, I think, quite a while ago now.
So there is quite a lot you can do for free. It just so happens that the 2 things we chose to do, you have to pay for.
Yeah, and I think the Cutty Sark is £20 a person. The observatory is £20 a person. So the fact that we got half price at the Cutty Sark, having bought our tickets to the Royal Observatory, that was £60 for the 2 of us. We did have even though we'd taken some food with us and also a flask of tea,
which we always do anyway.
We did buy a falafel wrap, and we each had a coffee, didn't we? Did we have a coffee?
No, we didn't have a coffee.
What did we have?
We had a packet of crisps.
Oh yeah, a packet of crisps. So that was £15 for a falafel wrap each and a packet of crisps. I think and then travel, of course, even though it's capped, there's a travel cap on London transport
per
day. So I think the whole day was about £105, something like that.
I mean, the great thing about transport in London is everything is done. You can use your debit card. You don't need an Oyster card or a travel card or any tickets within London. You can literally tap the sensor as you enter, and tap the sensor as you leave the station, and then the system accounts
For that.
and it's capped, so you can do quite a lot of journeys in central London and you never pay more than the cap,
Yeah.
which I think is great.
It'd be interesting to know. I know there's a lot of people with the
that
budget.
includes buses as well.
With the budget last week, buses are going up from £2 to £3 for a single trip. So it will be interesting to see whether if you're using
not London prices though, is it?
Yeah,
That's
I think
London.
it is.
I don't think it is. I think it's staying at 175.
Right. Okay.
for a
Maybe
bus
not.
journey.
Okay. Well, that's interesting then. Okay, I'll have to look into that because I was wondering,
I think
are
it's
they going to
national
raise the
bus
cap?
journeys that
Possibly.
are £2.
Yeah. When we say national, we don't mean travelling from London to Newcastle.
We mean
outside of London. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the local area outside. Yeah.
But seeing as we don't use London transport that much at all, it's quite rare that we actually get on buses and trains in London because we don't need to. It's hard to keep up to date with these things.
Yeah.
Anywho, we wanted to talk briefly about prices of things in general. I mean, the gift shops, each of the places we visited has a gift shop. And there is lots of alluring little objects that one thinks, oh gosh, look at that. Like at the observatory they had these little golden calendars on a key ring, little compasses on key rings, watches, t-shirts, mugs, you name it, they got it. And all at quite high prices.
Well, we did look at one key ring you were quite keen on, and that was £8. I thought that's quite pricey for a key ring. That was the compass one. I did think that would be quite useful though. You know, it's quite useful to have a compass, and you know, of course, if you've got a smartphone, you've got a compass on your smartphone, or you can download an app with a compass on your smartphone. But there's nothing like an actual compass.
Oh, I love a compass.
Yeah, but we didn't purchase anything.
Well, you did. You bought this book.
I bought the book.
And how much was this book? I mean, this
book,
is a thin book, hardback.
It was £12.95. It was £5 off. So it was £7.95.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was £5 off.
Yeah, I took the sticker off before I gave it to him.
Where was the sticker?
There.
Okay.
So yeah, you know, these things are pricey. I mean, of course, they've got to cover the heating of the places, the staffing, the cleaning, all of that. I did think the toilets at the Queen's House were very clean. I was very impressed by them.
I had a slightly weird experience in the toilet. I found it all a little bit. It was very low lit, but it was very nice. But the door to the vestibule was open, so when I washed my hands, I couldn't see where the hand dryers were, and just by the door there was like I'm a bit embarrassed actually. There was an air conditioning vent.
Did you?
And I thought, oh, this must be the hand dryer. So I was stood with my hands over the air conditioning vent, thinking this is going to take 10 minutes. I thought this can't be the hand dryer.
Oh dear.
So I looked around and then I found the hand dryers.
Yeah, they were just tucked around the corner.
Thank goodness there was nobody else there, because I would have looked a complete and utter prat. Seriously.
Oh dear.
But yes, they were very clean and they smelled very fresh.
They did, yeah.
Anyway, prices.
Yeah, prices.
Why did you want to talk about prices?
I have noticed Lidl has had for ages. If something is getting near to its expiry date, like I don't know, pizzas and whatever, they've had for many years a 30% off, a 60% off, and a 90% off. And what I noticed this week is that those have changed, and I think they're now 20%, 40% and 60%, something like that. So the discount for items which are going to go off pretty soon has been reduced, which I think is really interesting. And it got me thinking about the cost of things generally, and I was looking at a few bills, receipts, because I use an app. We have an app, and it gives you some discounts on things. And that app also keeps all your receipts electronically. The little app. It keeps your receipts electronically. So I was looking back a year yesterday at certain things, and then looking back a year again, and it's incredible that things over the last, we know that prices have risen, but even over the last couple of months, a few things that we buy regularly have risen in price. And I would reckon that our average basket, it used to be 20 quid. Then I think it was sort of around 28, 30. Now I think it's more about 30, 32, 34 quid. And I'm noticing that even though when I look at petrol prices, which around us here are about £1.35 a litre, and yeah, for those Americans, £1.35 a litre, not a gallon, prices are still going up. And then I heard about, Sainsbury's are saying that because of the budget, they're adding 100 million to their costs because of the additional employee taxes they have to pay. And they were sort of saying, the price is going to go up and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, I've thought this for ages, businesses should pay more directly for our national health services, because it's to their benefit that their staff are healthy. It absolutely is. So all of these big businesses that are not now going, oh, this is going to cost us 100 million more. Don't think it in the terms of it's going to cost you 100 million more. Think that you're spending 100 million for the better health of your staff. Think of it that way, because then that's a much more positive way to think about it. And if you make a little less profit, just bear with it, because your profits don't need to rise year on year on year on year. That's not good for society. It's not good for the health of the people. So if you have to pay an extra 1.5%, bear with it, because you're actually giving better health to your employees, which if it's Sainsbury's or any of the huge companies, that's tens of thousands of people that are benefiting from you paying a little bit extra and having a tiny bit less profit.
Yeah, all right.
There we are.
But what I see, the way I see it, is if everything continues to rise and people aren't paid particularly much more, then it's just going to get to the stage where nobody can afford anything, nobody can afford any heating, nobody can afford any lighting, and people are just going to be sat in their houses, unable to do anything, wrapped in blankets, and just unable to do anything.
Yeah, and we know what that was like 2 years ago. In January, February and March 2 years ago, that's exactly what we were doing. We had many of our radiators off. We were wrapped in blankets. We were cold. So yeah, don't just think about the profits being reduced that you're making.
But it's not even that. I mean, how do the powers that be want it to play out? Do you know what I mean? That's the whole thing. They are not, as far as I can see, pro-society.
No.
It's just...
When you say the powers that be, who do you mean?
Well, I mean all the elite.
The corporates and...
All of them.
Yeah.
All of them. They're all powers in high places with money. So what do they want society to become? Just a quagmire of starving people below them, building their glass towers higher and higher and higher into the sky, so they can sit and view the shit below them.
Well, no, they view their bank balances, and I think this is. I do think, I've said this before many times. I do think hoarding wealth and just going after profit. I think that is a mental. I think that should be classed as a mental health.
Anywho.
Mental ill health.
Anywho,
I really do.
I think we've done that one to death now, Paul.
Oh, I could go on.
So, let's discover together what this week's word of the week is.
Yay!
Let's discover it together, shall we? Hurrah.
I learnt a word this morning. Aftermorrow. What do you think aftermorrow is?
The day after tomorrow.
The day after tomorrow. Yeah. I love that word now.
That's easy.
Yeah, but I
Right,
think it's
so
great.
what is the date today?
So normally when we record this, because we're recording this on Saturday, normally when we record it on the Friday, you'll be watching it on the aftermorrow.
What is the day today? The date? 10th.
10th. Yes,
Yeah.
10th. Yes, it started with the 4th.
Oh, how interesting. How apt. So the word is caliginous. Caliginous. Caliginous or caliginous. Dark, gloomy, dim, obscure.
Oh.
When one wants to emphasise a poverty of light. Isn't that interesting?
How mad.
Yeah, we've got a couple of those, haven't we,
Yeah.
that have coincided, been synchronous.
Synchronicity.
Synchronous.
Synchronous, yeah.
Synchronous. When one wants to emphasise a poverty of light, it is easy to run out of synonyms. We might therefore resurrect the beautiful adjective caliginous, from the Latin for misty.
That's interesting, because I was going down the calligraphy route. When you said it, I thought callig, that comes, calligraphy, must be something to do with writing, but no.
Cowper's translation of the Odyssey, for example, boasts the line, "The goddess entered deep the cave Caliginous." Caliginous. I don't know how it's pronounced.
Caliginous, I thought.
The word is also casually employed by Dr. Johnson's friend Hester Lynch Piozzi, formerly Thrale, in her 1794 usage guide, British Synonymy. Synonymy?
Yeah.
Where she writes of that caliginous atmosphere which fills London towards the 10th of November.
No!
Yes! That is really spooky shizzle. Wow.
Oh, that's mad.
Wow.
That is mad.
In November, one doesn't necessarily have to wait till so near the end of the year to experience a caliginous ambience. But in honour of Piozzi, let us nonetheless celebrate the word today.
Well, there we are. We are.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. 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 It is the 10th today, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Sunday the 10th.
Yeah. Alexa, what's today's
Yes,
date?
it is. No, today's date.
It's Saturday the 9th of
9th.
November.
So it is the 10th.
Yeah, it is the 10th. I've written it here. 10th of November. So lovely. All that remains for us to do is talk about what we've watched on television and remember to tell you which platform they're on
Yes,
as well.
yeah.
Thank you for the reminder.
If we can remember.
So, RuPaul's Drag Race, BBC 3, continues to be a good season.
Absolutely.
We also watched a ghost story on
Yes.
BBC 4 called Stigma.
Yeah.
which was a half-hour ghost story from 1970.
4?
I want to say 77.
Maybe. 1970s.
Starring Peter Bowles and bizarrely set in Avebury.
Yeah, or I'm not sure. I mean, I know that
That was definitely Avebury.
Do you think out the window shots looking out were Avebury?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
I wasn't sure.
Definitely.
I'm not sure if it was filmed. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
anyway.
you saw Silbury Hill as well.
No, I know you saw Silbury Hill,
It
but
was Avebury,
it's a bit
Paul.
like, you know, when we're watching Murder, She Wrote and they come to London and you see certain things.
They didn't have the technology to do that in those days, to make it look like that.
No, I don't mean to make it look like it. I mean to get shots which are that whilst filming in a cottage. That might not be.
No, it was.
It was. Anyway, it was about this these people who move into, or they have moved into a house, and they want a lovely lawn, and the husband decides to move one of these stones
Well, you get some workmen
that
to
has
move
fallen
stones.
over from the garden, and gets workmen in to remove the stone. And what happens after that?
Yeah, it was quite
It was-
dark.
Yeah, it was quite dark. It was very 1970s because you
Very
had
70s.
boobies.
There were boobs
Yeah,
involved.
you had boobies.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I was glad I recorded it. I have no idea Peter Bowles was in it. So.
And it was a very good copy.
Yeah,
as well.
it was.
It was a very
It
clear
was.
print of it. So yeah, that was interesting.
That was BBC 4.
Yeah, we've said that. Paul.
Have you? I
Yeah.
wasn't listening to you.
We also watched Frankenstein, The
Life of Books,
which was also BBC 4,
Yeah.
which was, what's her name? Oh God, Alice? Is it Alice? Alice Roberts?
No.
No, not Alice Roberts.
Mary Shelley. Shelley.
No, the presenter.
Oh, the presenter. Oh, I don't know.
Well, she's the same one that does the archaeology stuff.
Oh yeah, it was that one.
About Mary Shelley,
Yeah.
Percy Shelley,
Yeah.
and, you know, the writing of Frankenstein. Very interesting.
It was. What I didn't know is that they each annotated they each changed each other's writing, which I had no idea of before we watched this
They
programme.
were very much working in sync together, weren't
Yeah,
they?
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. It was about their relationship and all of that.
Hmm.
And, yeah. And why, the reasons why the book was written.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Or
yeah.
why they think the book was written.
Yeah. Yeah, from what they can tell. They could be completely utterly wrong.
They
I
could
can't
be.
speak today.
Never mind.
Well,
Never mind.
So, you started rewatching the last series of D.I. Ray.
Yes.
This is on ITV.
There's a new
Because
series.
there's a new series.
There's a
yeah.
new series, and I remember not particularly getting on with the first episode of this whole entire, new detective series that is being broadcast on ITV. And it's really, I realise how the character develops by watching these. I think there were 4 episodes again. And it was quite interesting from a writing perspective how the character develops. So, yeah.
For those of you who don't know, this is about, it's set in the Midlands, set in Birmingham.
Birmingham?
And it's about a detective that's brought in to...
Tick boxes.
Yeah, because she is Asian and...
Of Asian heritage.
Yeah, it's a tick box exercise. And she realises this. And she encounters quite a lot of difficulty.
Yeah.
And her life is a bit of a mess. Caused by her, mainly.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's a very flawed character, but she's a good detective.
She also has a challenging time with her future husband. So,
Ugh,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty dark. It's pretty dark. So I'm looking forward actually to the new series.
Yeah, which has started.
Yeah,
We just haven't watched it
Yeah,
yet.
recommended. ITV, D.I. Ray. We continue with Digging for Britain on BBC Four. Archaeology programme.
No, BBC Two.
BBC
Digging
Two.
for Britain, BBC Two.
BBC.
Yeah, BBC Two.
You'll find it. And yeah, that continues to entertain. It's always interesting.
It is. It is.
We also watched a show called Bridges That Built London. And you say this is BBC Two, Paul?
It was. I think it was BBC Two. It's BBC Two or Four. Again, BBC.
We're going to need to start being more organised, aren't we, with
Yeah.
things that we watch. There are notebooks everywhere.
It was really. We had thought about going to Greenwich, as you know, and this came on. I'm always interested in the bridges. I'm always interested in bridges, particularly London Bridge, London bridges, and it was a really good programme about London bridges.
And also about the significance of the bridge. The bridge had a mystical significance to it.
It's about crossing the water. Yeah, fascinating.
Well, it was more than that.
Well, I know it was more than that, but it was the metaphorical nature of crossing water, which I think is fascinating. And then, of course, other areas of interest.
Well, yeah. Water was also originally considered to contain spirits and energies, you know. So anyway, very interesting programme.
And also astounded that London Bridge, when the first bridge was crossed, it was a stone bridge with houses on and shops and things on either side of it. You know, fascinating. And the way it had been built meant that it slowed the flow of the water, which meant that with the slower moving water, when it got really cold, the Thames would freeze, which is how they had frost fairs over that period.
Yeah.
Where now, because the spans of bridges are so much wider, the river flows so much faster, the likelihood of it freezing over again is pretty minimal. So yeah, I find that fascinating.
Yeah, it was a good programme. That's it. That is it for this week's show.
I have continued with Mr. Mercedes once he's been asleep. And yeah, it's interesting, but again, the end of the first series, they changed the book. And I don't understand. I mean, you have the same outcome, but it's a different event, a different denouement, venue, if you like. And I don't know why they do that. But anyway, yeah.
It's time for us to have lunch.
Soup!
Definitely.
Soup.
On this cold, misty grey day. This
Caliginous.
Cliggly.
This Cliggly day.
Cliggly day.
There we are. Cliggly day. There we are. Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Watch my vlogs.
Yeah. And my A Week at the Plot when it comes out. There is a bit in A Week at the Plot about things in Greenwich and what I used to do there, both with Mum and Dad, visiting when I was 11, with a pie and mash shop, and the ice rink and the wheel that I used to do the marketing and PR
So
for.
plenty more to look at to last you through the week until next week's show. So thank you.
Sunday chat!
Goodbye.
Bananas.
Tits and bums.
Bye.
Bye.